everyone, and welcome to the Flexible Dieting Podcast. I'm Kevin Brunacini here with Joey Jojo Klemczewski and Austin Kiergaard.
I
I
was
need
like,
a,
where's he going with this?
I need something more creative, or I guess Austin Austy, but that seems too easy.
I'll have Steve like superimpose like a rap outfit on me when you say that. Be
Yes.
my gang name.
We're all just going to pause it for a second.
We're all gonna take
I
a
literally
moment to
have a
soak
picture
that
like
image
that. I will
in.
show you guys a picture when I kind of mocked that at one point.
Oh my God.
I'll throw that your way.
Please do. And for everyone else's sake. So today's topic is going to be an inevitable one that comes up is what to do when we're injured/ill. And I particularly want to focus, or I want to start with being ill just because it's the time of the season. It's still springtime here. So it's just inevitable. And clients, especially as of late, as I've said, they're coming across seasonal viruses. So this question often comes up with clients. Again, I'm general population. So my answer to them is probably going to be far more relaxed. Maybe not, but it's far more relaxed compared to an athletic competitor who, there might be some grit that they have to rely on here, but there's still context and circumstantial situation on what is best on how to approach illness or injury in the sake of you two see more when it comes to your clients. But so that as a first topic, I like to lean on compassion on the sense of when someone is, again, I'm going to focus more on illness just because that's what I see in my context. But when clients are ill, I like to tell them, just don't worry about it. In terms of nutrition, you're stressed, you got enough on your plate, just worry about feeling better. Again, generally speaking, that's just, if they feel differently or they just are not that bad, then fine, we write it out. But there's no need to add more fuel to the fire when it comes to my perspective, and that generally eases the clients, I would imagine. But to throw it your way, Joe, what do you advise to clients when, again, just focus on illness right now, then we'll jump over to injury next. But what do you advise clients? How's that conversation go with them?
You're making me feel like there's a big gap in my own knowledge. I don't know if there's any research that says that, because you hear some of these axioms like, well, just wait to train or do this until you are, over a fever or something, and different parts of that immune system recovery. But in terms of just that acute nature of what to do with food, I also just say, hey, look, your only job right now is to survive. So you have these goals of getting healthier. You're in this track of losing body fat. That's actually helpful for immunity. Like you going out and eating donuts and ice cream because you think, okay, woe is me, I'm sick. That's not good for your immunity, and it's not good for your goals. So let's stick to pretty goal aligned behaviors, but we're not going to track macros. I don't care if you're not getting enough protein, eat chicken broth, drink some ginger ale if you have the flu or something, like all those things that you may need to just kind of feel better and get through it. But absolutely, you're probably going to be under on your calories for a couple of days, depending on what you have. Strep throat is rampant right now. Flu, the spring flu swing, the back end of flu season is here. You just have to not worry about the numbers and even the quantity. Just get through this acute phase.
I don't know what this. I'm glad you brought up the question regarding research on, or what is evidence regarding this, because that was actually a kind of a sub point question to you was, what benefits, which you spoke of, but well, not benefits, but disadvantages if you were to continue eating maybe not the greatest type of foods. But I was going to say what are benefits, and of course you've spoken to that too. But
well, I will say, if I could interrupt for a second, there's definite research that it says no, you cannot. That sugar does decrease immunity. You can measure your T cell activity and immune function, and so fasting, and this is kind of I don't want to call it an old wives' tale or something, because there is some truth to it. Your cells have certain tasks that they're called to do. And if you're constantly metabolizing sugar and shitty stuff, and your cells have to go through the process of extruding and getting rid of, toxins and waste material, that's energy that could have been going toward maintenance and autophagic type things where you're recovering better. So I mean, if there is any research, I think you would find it there. I just don't know where the boundaries are. So as long as you're eating well, then and even fasting, like we know, again, going to those kind of principles, I think it would just be helpful for you to recover faster.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that, which is a really good point, actually. So I'll pause on more questions for you, Joe, but to shift it to you, Austin, it's in same regards, but more just with your background, more nutritionally speaking, when you have clients that are ill, is there anything you particularly do nutritionally speaking? If say it's not a client that really is feeling terrible, they're still able to exercise at a lower capacity, but they still want to just continue. Is there anything you would do nutritionally to, say increasing protein that's going to help with recovery quicker or just overall immunity? Is there anything of that nature that you do, or do you just keep it on a, we're just going to write it up, not write it up, but we're going to just continue as is because it's okay type of thing?
Yeah, I look at the illness that they have, because when we're sick, in a lot of cases, our calorie needs actually go up, but we feel like garbage and we don't have much appetite, right? So it's kind of interesting. Like our body is in a highly inflammatory state at this point, and we actually require more calories a lot of times when we're ill, but we just don't feel very hungry. For example, let's say you have like a stomach flu and you are constantly throwing up or having diarrhea. You have constant fluid and electrolyte loss. So I will have that conversation like, hey, I know it's hard to get stuff down. Do what you can, but try to focus on electrolyte replenishment, because you're still going to be getting rid of some of that stuff, but you're also still going to be absorbing some of that stuff. And the last thing we need is, while you're going through this, to be in a state of dehydration. The last thing we need to do, to Joe's point, is make this worse. So I don't necessarily tell them, let's focus on tracking macros. I just look at like what their issue is. If they've got like strep throat and no appetite, I might just say, hey, eat enough protein, keep your fluid intake high. As far as the workout goes, a lot of people that, in my experience, they just don't want to work out, or it's the opposite. Depending on how sick they are, they feel if they do work out, they'll feel a little better, which is another topic for another day. So I try to tell them to do, if they want to do something, stay home, do some yoga, just kind of do stuff that really relaxes you, not additional stress on top of the stress you are already experiencing. So to answer your question, I take the approach of, what type of sickness do you have? Because in some ways we do need to address that issue nutritionally, but it's not like track your macros, be perfect, because that doesn't make sense. It's, let's make sure you're getting things in that's going to help you. If your appetite can handle a little bit of fruit, something soft but nutrient dense, if it can tolerate some liquids, especially if you're losing a lot of liquids, let's focus on that, just so we can make sure that we're keeping you as healthy as we can while you are trying to recover from this illness.
Yeah, and I would say the consensus amongst us is all there. And I asked the question not to point out if there was anything obvious or some type of hidden gem within that, but it comes down to just being practical and realistic. That you're ill, cool it, it's okay, calm your tits, we'll be okay. Just, if you want to exercise, cool, within reason, but you're just sick, you're simply ill. There's other priorities that need to take precedence over eating and tracking everything and or training. But you're talking to someone who's looking for any excuse. I got a hangnail, well, I'm going to take the day off. So I'm all for an excuse to not exercise, but being realistic, I know. But realistically, it's just a matter of, just don't have fuel to a fire, eat sensibly, eat mindfully, eat nutritiously, do something, well, maybe just have some type of light activity, if anything. But throw back to kind of switch gears now, and still an inevitable, perhaps an inevitable circumstances now, injury, which I'm certain this is a topic in of itself of injury prevention. But just when a client has an injury, and go back to you, Joe, when there is an injury, of course, I don't know what we're speaking of when it comes to the injury, but how does that conversation go? What do you do based on what's going on acutely regarding training, but is there anything nutritionally as well?
Well, it is an actual frequent question, because if a client does have some kind of injury and it does impact their training, their immediate question is, what should I do with my food intake? And so it does come down to just some basic understanding of how many calories are you not going to be able to use now because of this injury. When I tore my pec and subscapularis last month, I initially, kind of being a silver lining kind of guy, went to, okay, I can't train like I wanted to, so I'm just going to do tons of cardio and I'll get leaner, because I still wanted something positive to look forward to. So, I made up that gap. I was looking for a way to keep my exercise induced activity and thermogenesis high, so I didn't need to adjust my own calories. But for other people, I think it is just kind of simple math, and that's okay. Like, if we do need to adjust, but often, because of recovery, to Austin's point, in injury or illness, sometimes the caloric needs from healing are accelerated. And so maybe even a little bit more is something you could look at. I feel a little dumb right now because I'm almost exactly 6 weeks post injury. And I had friends saying, oh, you should go to Mexico and get stem cells and do this, go to Germany and get this. And I'm like, I'm not even increasing my protein. Like, I could have ordered some glutamine. I could have been making sure I get an extra 50 grams of protein. And I'm just thinking, like, hey, the body does fine. Like, I've got all those tools. I'm eating well anyway. I don't need that. But now I'm like, maybe I should have actually made a couple adjustments.
And that goes back to answering the topic we had on a previous episode regarding calories and the importance of tracking calories independently of macros. It's one thing just to say, here are your macros, but if we understand what calories are and what they represent, then in this context of reduced exercise, then it is a matter of managing the calories. Granted, yes, that will funnel into the macros too, but if we still have the understanding of the broader picture of the meaning of calories, then we can better adjust and adapt when we need to. And of course, the length of the injury is going to determine how long a change needs to occur, of course. But to wrap up, Austin, and this may be kind of a quirky question, and there may not be anything, but again, and this would be both illness and or injury, but are there any special, in quotes, special supplements or, quote again, superfoods that can speed up a process for recovery?
It's a broad question. Like Joe said, I could increase glutamine. I could, maybe my appetite's not there. I could use some branched chain amino acids. I could have some extra protein. It is going to depend. I don't think that there's the nutrition side of me says I think we can get most of our stuff from food. Is there some supplements? Yes, supplements have their place, especially if decreased appetite. So I'm not saying I'm not against the supplements, but I try to focus on the food first. As I already kind of explained with the illness side, in some cases their needs are going to be higher, but the appetite's not there. So we may need to supplement some things to help with electrolyte replacement, and we might need to have some protein powder because we just can't even fathom chewing because our throat hurts so bad trying to get protein. And there's some ways that supplements can be beneficial. With the injury side of it, it depends on the severity of the injury, right? Like with Joe's example, he found a way to still stay active so he can still eat enough calories and he can do certain things. But there's also extreme injuries, right? Compound fracture, bones through the skin. They got to pop that sucker back in place and some surgery. In that case, protein needs might be up. Calorie needs might be down because you might be very limited on your activity depending on what you're doing in the first few weeks. So it's kind of like calories might go down a little bit, protein might go up. Well, that doesn't make sense because protein has calories, but we're shifting on recovery from that surgery and we're giving you enough calories for, to maintain your less activity. But if you're still able to get to the gym and do certain things, then the needs might go back up there. So if you've pulled back muscle, we might not need to increase protein needs. We might just need to make sure that we're feeding you enough based on your now limited activity, depending on what you're doing, kind of reiterating what Joe said. So as far as that goes, I like to focus on the food. There are some supplements that may be beneficial, but there's a lot of things that we can get from food and that our body already produces. So it's a situational thing for sure.
So you're telling me there's no turmeric that's going to fix anything that because that's not going to sell
Take all the
programs here.
turmeric you want, and you let me know how that goes.
Son of a bitch. Well, that's a very underwhelming.
I will say this.
I'm
Time
joking.
out. I will say this. I can't leave the diet side of me can't leave this little note before we end this. If you do have issues, like let's say it's a compound fracture, you've busted that bone up pretty bad. Obviously people are going to say calcium, but don't forget calcium with vitamin D. Vitamin D helps the absorption of calcium. So that is something where that happened to my father last year. Somehow when he was riding his bike, they've got like a really nice like road bike. The pedal snapped and he caught himself going forward. And I mean, that bone went straight through the skin. And, you know, he had to get the surgery done, had to get everything. And he's not like a big eater anyways. And I said, you need to actually listen to me and you need to get they just go to the grocery store, fortified orange juice. It's got calcium and vitamin D. You need to drink that twice a day. You need to do a little bit better on your protein. And, you know, he just, it's been rated a year and he just ran a 5K. So like, I will say that there can be some supplements, but again, we can get calcium and vitamin D from foods. But if you are in extreme surgery or something like that, that's important. And you got to make sure you're taking those things together. And the other diet side of me, do not take those things with iron because calcium and iron compete for absorption. So that's what I'm ending that there.
And
just close this out, Austin. We're good. You can just close this out, Austin. You dropped the microphone there.
I just wanted to put the little asterisk. No, because I mean, I wanted to be fair to answering your question. So
it was a facetious question in some way, but I was expecting like, oh yeah, just lipo B12, and there you go. Your wells again. It's facetious, but it's a question I often will get asked. You know, what can I do to speed this up, man?
Austin pulls out a chart that looks like this and says, okay, now for this injury, you got to do this. And then this, here's, you know, pulls out a scroll.
I've been considering getting like a whiteboard behind me so I can, you know.
we need to write up the Krebs cycle one more time, everyone.
Yep. One more time.
But here you are derailing us. Come on, guys. So I want to close this because it's probably been more than 15 minutes and we don't want to upset Steven. So but people like the banter, I've heard, so we'll continue with this. But nonetheless, in summary, you know, don't be a jackass when it comes to when you are feeling ill or injured. Don't get cocky with the nutrition or the training. Play it out. See how you feel. If things needs to adjust nutritionally and or training, do so accordingly. But biggest thing is don't add fuel to the fire from a stress or metabolic stress perspective. Focus on recovery and what you can do to optimize that and hopefully therefore make it efficient and effective for you so you can kick ass and squat tomorrow, because that's ultimately what matters, right, everyone? Compound fracture or not, you expect you to squat the next day. So
I would.
Anyways, thanks everyone. This is the Flexible Dieting Podcast. We'll catch you next time.